Hey, how's it going, guys? TND coming back at you. So the day one raid race for Salvation's Edge is tomorrow, so I just wanted to show you guys my loadouts real quick that I'm going to be bringing into the day one raid race. Now, I am a Warlock main through and through, so it's almost certainly that I'm just going to be running Warlock the entire time. I will have my other characters ready by then, but I just wanted to show you the three main builds and then the loadouts with the weapons and the armor and all that stuff that I'm going to be running. So just diving right into it, the first build that I'm probably going to be walking in with is this Prismatic loadout right here. I did an entire video on this before the season came out, and it's just awesome. I'm using Feed the Void and Bleak Watcher, and these two go hand in hand together because I can shatter targets and proc Feed the Void off it. I'm using the Nova Bomb because it was buffed this season. These are all basically the same base fragments except for Facet of Command, which will reload your weapons anytime you freeze a target, which is really good. Oh, and I'm also using Arcane Needle because it gives you 3 melee charges, and it's just really good for proccing that Facet of Dawn so you can get Radiant even more frequently. Then the 3 weapons I'm using Pardon Our Dust with blinding grenades on it. Auto-loading blinding is super powerful, and if you're in a situation where there's just a lot of ads around you, just blind them, and it makes it a lot easier. I was running this a lot on the Legend campaign because I was stuck running solo because the servers are awful. But anyway, Buried Bloodline. This is going to be my main source of weaken. Weaken is really strong this season. We'll get to the artifact in a little bit here, but if you have Buried Bloodline with the Catalyst, you know that it does weaken on hit, so everything is just doing 15% more damage. This thing was one-shotting literally everything in the Legendary campaign, so I'm curious to see how it's going to hold up in the day one raid. And then I'm using Commemoration with Enhanced Reconstruction Killing Tally as my heavy. This thing is also just a monster. It gets 150 in the mag when Reconstruction is like fully booted up, so it's super good. By the way, for all your heavies, make sure you're using backup mag, generally speaking, because boss spec, major spec, they're not a thing anymore, so just backup mag for everything. So this is my first loadout here. I am using Osmiomancy, and I'm just spamming Bleak Watchers like crazy, and then Buried Bloodline is basically my primary in this loadout. And then if I'm feeling like I'm getting a little overwhelmed with ads, I'll usually shoot my blinding grenade in one direction, and then I'll throw a Bleak Watcher in the other direction, and ads usually aren't much of a problem. So this is an awesome build. The first encounter of most raids are usually some sort of puzzle or ad clearing or survivability based encounter, so this is definitely one I'm going to be booting in with tomorrow when the raid race drops. Looking at the artifact real quick, it's possible there's going to be champions. I'm going to be running Barrier Pulse and Unstopped Sidearm, and then I am not running Overload Sword. If you want to use swords, but be my guest. Creeping Shell is really good on stasis builds this season. I'm noticing everything's getting slowed pretty frequently when I'm destroying the targets that are frozen by the Bleak Watchers. If you destroy one target that is frozen by Bleak Watcher, basically just kills everything else. It's pretty great. Void Hegemony is also really good. I feel like I'm getting Void Overshields literally all the time with this loadout. Radiant Orbs is OP. And then the 2 big ones in the 5th column for me at least are Expanding Abyss, which TLDR for this is that it takes your weaken debuff from a 15% to a 20%, or if you're using something like a tether or tractor cannon, it takes it from a 30% to I think like a 33% debuff. So it's pretty good, and because of this, you're always going to be wanting to use a Void heavy weapon if you're doing boss damage or something like that, or in my case, I'm going to be using Commemoration whenever I'm doing ad clearing stuff. And then the other one, I don't have both in the 5th column unlocked yet, but I will by the time the raid drops here. Shield Crush is really strong this season because you're going to be getting those ability buffs so frequently. Your grenade and melee charges are coming back super fast now, and their damage is increased as well. I think it's like 25% or something like that. It's a lot. It's really strong. But anyway, this is the first loadout I'm going to be bringing in with me. Going into my boss loadouts, there's really 2 that I'm focused on mainly. First one is going to be a Well of Radiance build with Phoenix Protocol. Even though Well got nerfed this season, it's still really good, and I can't envision a world where we're not going to be sitting in a well doing damage, and the more wells the better. And the cool thing about Phoenix Protocol is that you can pop it like during the pre-DPS phase, and then if you've got another guy in your team that is running well, they can pop theirs, and then you can pop yours like second usually because you'll get it back because all the orbs that are being generated. The weapons I'm going to be using for this is going to be Pardon Our Dust again. I think that this is going to be kind of like glued to my kinetic slot unless, I'm going to be stuck using one of these other weapons for specific jobs and mechanics. I'm also going to be using Red Death. Red Death is really strong. We don't have the Catalyst, unfortunately, yet. That unlocks in Act 2, which is 40 days away, but the Cure times 2 on kills is really strong. Pulse Rifle's got, what, a 30% buff this season, and it's really good, and it heals your allies too when you reload, and that's going to proc Ember of Benevolence, which gives you 400% grenade recharge time, which is really nice, so you'll get more charges on your healing grenades for even more survivability, and I just like it a lot. And this is just like a pretty like basic Solar Warlock build. I'm running Void Surges on my legs here, and for my heavy, you knew it was coming, Edge Transit with Envious and Bait and Switch, which, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know, if you have one of those brave weapons that are just like 2 perks in the third and fourth column here, you can enhance them now. As you can see, this is basically like a crafted version of the gun. It looks like a crafted version of the gun on the right there. So this thing's going to be a monster. This is like my main weapon of choice for the day 1 raid race. I'm sure this is going to be the main choice for a lot of people. That being said, I do have 2 of them in case it's like a really fast damage phase. I have a cascade bait and switch one as well that I'm going to be switching to, that if need be. I just thought it'd be a good idea. It'd be a good idea to have both of those ready to go. Here's the loadout that I'm going to be running with Phoenix Protocol. So this is one of the possible boss damage phase loadouts that I have ready. The other one is going to be another Well of Radiance build, but this time with Cenotaph Mask. And the number one thing that holds up a lot of more like middle of the road day 1 raid teams like mine is you're going to run into ammo problems. And Cenotaph Mask is one of the best ways to create consistent ammo along with Aeons. They did nerf Cenotaph this season so that you can't have like multiple people in Cenotaph tag the same target and then you're making like a bunch of heavy ammo. You can't do that anymore. Also, you need to call out when you're marking a target because it doesn't pop up on your HUD. It pops up on teammates' HUD. I don't know what's up with that. Cenotaph Mask is still going to be very important for generating heavy ammo for your teammates. So this is just a basic Well of Radiance build to go along with that. I'm still using Surges even though I am not on Edge Transit anymore. I'm on Divinity. So I tend to be the low person in damage a lot on my fire team. So if we need Divinity, I'm probably going to be the Divinity person. Divinity with Cenotaph is really great. You never have to reload it. And then I'm running Commemoration again here. So I can really go to town on pre-DPS phases because I'm not using my heavy for boss damage, which is really nice. And then I have a Rufus's with Reconstruction and Hatchling that I like a lot. This thing's got enhanced Reconstruction. It's got 72 in the mag for backup mag. So that's what, 144 fully loaded. It can just shoot forever. It's absurd. This is the third loadout that I will possibly be using. So these 2 are my main like boss damage loadouts. And then I have this third one in case it's not a boss damage thing and they really just need somebody that's good on CC and ag clear. That's the loadout I'm going to be running here. Real quick, for our armor, you want to have an armor chest piece for all 3 possible reserves you're rocking with. So if you're going into a boss damage encounter and you got your edge transit, what you want to do is go over to your chest piece that is void reserves, and then you're going to rally on the void reserves and then swap back. What I like to do is that like anytime we wipe, the first thing I'm doing when we wipe is swap my chest piece just so I can rally and get it back on and we're good to go. Extra little bit of heavy ammo is always going to go a long way. You never know how close the damage check is going to be on a day 1. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Getting into our weapons, the rest of the weapons that I haven't talked about here. Scatter Signal is a really good single target fusion rifle. I definitely wanted to have at least Scatter Signal or Riptide or Deliverance or something like that in that first column. Supremacy, if we need to pop crits from far away, something like that, then you're going to want to have a sniper rifle. I would use Supremacy or Succession are probably the 2 big ones. Outbreak Perfected, primary ammo DPS. I am using the one with rewind rounds, so you're going to be able to shoot this thing forever, and if you have everybody on your team using it, then you should be outputting pretty decent DPS, especially if it's like a final stand or something like that and nobody's got heavy. Everybody switched to Outbreak. That's the call, right? Vulpecula is an interesting one here. It's got shoot to loot and explosive payload. You want a weapon in both your kinetic and energy slot that has shoot to loot on it. So if you're in a situation where there's heavy ammo on the ground, but it's too far away from you for you to grab it, then you need to switch your shoot to loot weapon, and then boom. Explosive payload's really good because it expands the radius of which like you're going to pick it up, so you don't need to shoot directly on the ammo brick. And you can also pick up orbs with this as well for armor charges. The Call is the new rocket sidearm, and it is Strand. I do not have this thing crafted yet. I have 4 patterns, so there's a good chance that I have this thing crafted, and I would craft it with Lead from Gold and Vorpal, but for now, the best one that I have right now is Lead from Gold Hatchling. Rocket sidearms are awesome. Strand is awesome for weapon types, so this one's a no-brainer. And then my Rufus's Fury that I talked about before, just a really solid all-around Strand auto rifle that I like a lot. I got Red Death. I have Still Hunt. So if the damage check is like really close, then it's possible that we're all going to be switching to Still Hunt here. For anybody that doesn't know, this is the exotic Golden Gun Sniper. So even though I'm on Warlock, I can get Golden Gun with this thing. I believe it also fully charges it up when you rally the flag. So you can get that Golden Gun shot off without having to worry about like running around and getting hits or anything like that. And if you're on Hunter and you're on Celestial, then you can basically shoot 2 Celestials back to back. It's an awesome gun, and it's a good chance that it plays in DPS phases. We'll have to see though. I also have a No Hesitation. I don't have this crafted yet either. This is with Subsistence and Attrition Orbs. This is the new healing auto rifle, which is pretty cool. So if you shoot enemies, it'll like build up a damage gauge that you can then hip fire and shoot at your teammates and heal them. So if I needed to go full healer, I'll have this on me me as well. I can swap that out for Red Death. I have an Aisha's Embrace, which is a Void Scout Rifle from Trials. It's got Shoot the Loot and Vorpal, so this is my Shoot the Loot weapon in the energy slot, so I can just really hit those bricks or orbs like a mile away if I need to. And then Buried Bloodline and Divinity, which I already talked about. In my heavy slot, what haven't I talked about here? We have Tractor Cannon, so if we need that 30% debuff, it's possible we need a Tractor Cannon person, so I have that on me just in case. Doom Petitioner, if for some reason GLs are not viable and we're doing, it's like a crit-based boss, then I've got this one with Reconstruction and Precision Instrument. Hopefully you have a crafted one from last season. This thing's pretty good when it comes to linear fusions. This is the 3-round burst one, and Reconstruction, it gets 14 in the bag. It also runs with Envious Assassin, so if you're good at getting your Envious Assassins procced, then you can also run with that as well, but Precision Instrument's definitely what you want. Possibility that swords play into DPS, especially with that new exotic sword with the Wolfpack rounds. That thing's pretty wild. I do not have a Vorpal bait and switch Fallen Guillotine. I did not get very good luck with my Fallen Guillotine drops during the Into the Light update, but I have this Vorpal Ear Edge one, so it should do just fine if we're having to do DPS. Remember, you want Void for all of your heavy weapons if you can swing it, so use that instead of something like a Bequest. The last thing I wanted to talk about was Microcosm, which I just got yesterday. This is the new heavy exotic trace rifle. It is kinetic and it fills up both the light and darkness bars for your prismatic subclasses, which is pretty cool. This thing is a monster. I might do a whole separate video on this. I'm definitely going to do a build video on this because this thing, it just hits like an absolute truck. It reminds me a lot of Thunderlord when it comes to just like really simple damage rotation type stuff. I think in Aztecross's damage testing video, this thing did like 2.6 million total damage, which is pretty solid. The buff that it gets from you popping your super, so something like a Well of Radiance, I think it's like 20%. It stacks with whatever other damage buffs you have going, so it's really, really strong, and it's possible that this will be a DPS option if you have one person with Divinity and then everybody else on Microcosm. We'll have to see. The last thing I want to tell you is that if you look at your gear score here, mine is 1971. You need to be at least 1965 for the day one raid race, so I would just go through every single piece of your gear. Make sure that it's all 1965. I was literally just checking this before recording this video. Everything should be at least 1965 and you're good because artifact power does not count, so you want to make sure that you're at least at that raid race level cap. Thanks for watching. By the way, that prismatic subclass build that I was talking about here, I did an entire separate video on that, so check this thing out right here.